Okay, so welcome to Spirit River Podcast, where every day is a good day. Even though today it is raining, but we need the rain on the West Coast. How about you, Pete, in the UK?
Well, it's persistently raining here too.
It's always raining in the
I
United
know,
Kingdom. I
I
live
know, it's a big problem.
So, anyway, welcome to the podcast, Pete. I'm just going to read a short little bio for you so people know who you are. And I am just so honored that you are here today. And let's get started. So, Pete is just calls himself an everyday working class guy who refuses to give up on himself. His journey goes from cleaning drains to becoming a millionaire at 21, living a jet set lifestyle, driving around in his boyhood dream car, the 911 Porsche. Ditto that. His biggest magic moment came from buying his parents a beautiful house for their unconditional love. How many kids get to do that for their parents, eh?
Amen.
Yeah. But then the markets changed. He made some bad decisions and he ended up losing everything at age 35. Long story. He suffered from depression, had a breakdown, and for 2 years he was in a very dark place. And that's when he met Claire, his soulmate, and found network marketing. Round two, fueled with desperation and inspiration, he went on to become a top 10 earner at another network marketing company, but that company changed as well, so he lost everything again. He took a break for 2 years, then discovered essential oils, but as customers to help with their health issues, he fell in love with the oils, which led him to this business. Welcome so much, Pete. Thank you for being
Oh, Petra, thank you for that. And yes, I am here and I'm happy to serve and hopefully inspire your incredible audience.
Well, so I met you through doTERRA because I also, like you, love essential oils. In fact, I had a personal letter from Dr. Young from Young Living not to go to aromatherapy school in 1998 when I first found out about essential oils, and I bought every oil there ever was when they opened. And in those days, there weren't that many oils. But now, and then I switched back and forth between doTERRA and Young Living, and I still use essential oils every single day of my life. And so,
Absolutely. I mean, it does become a way of life. They're not just smelly, fluffy things that people who knit woolly jumpers, wear flip-flops, and hug trees use.
they're not so let me ask you, where exactly in England are you from?
I'm from a place called County Durham in the northeast of England, so about two-thirds up from the bottom.
Okay, so that's the accent.
It
Okay,
is.
perfect. I love it. I love it. If I can't understand something, I might have to ask you.
Hey, no problem, no problem.
So, where shall we start? Shall we start with the pipe cleaning? Because that's just such a good story that how old were you when you started pipe cleaning?
17, just turning 17. Left school at about 16 and a half. Didn't stick in at school, didn't get any qualifications. Left feeling, oh my goodness, what have I done? When I realized that when I was going for interviews, no one would give me a job. And so I kind of thought, okay, well, I've just got to do something. And I applied for this job. It was quite interesting because I applied for this job and it said that it was to be an environmental technician. And I thought, oh, now that sounds befitting of a man of my aspiration. What I realized was that was actually a posh name for a drain cleaner.
So you had to put those what are those called? Snakes?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Just stuff the
Snakes
rods up the
down the
pipe
drain?
and clear the blockage. I remember thinking, what on earth am I doing?
Wow.
You know,
So how long
not
did
what I
you
imagined.
how long did you do that?
I think it was for about a week and a half. So I really give it a good go.
Okay.
No, I knew, Petra, that no, I'm better than this. I am better than this. Nothing wrong with it, but I had bigger aspirations in life, and I realized that was not going to get me there.
So then what happened?
Well, I went back to the drawing board and I thought, right, I'll apply for some new jobs. So I was looking around, and a friend of mine said, "Hey, there's a job going at the company where he's working, and that was to become a carpet cleaner." And I thought, well, that's a step up. At least it's inside and it's warm.
Hmm.
And I said, yeah, okay, I'll apply for that. So I put my name. He put my name forward, and I went for the interview, and I got the job. And but what was really interesting is that everybody there was moaning and groaning about it being a dead end job and the pay was rubbish, and it was just like I was kicking around with these guys that were just, geez, they sucked the life out of me. Here's me feeling aspirational about where I'm going in life, and these guys were just moaning and groaning constantly about that it was a dead end job.
Hmm.
And but here's the thing, Peter, right? Is that I had a chance meeting with a multi-millionaire whilst I was working at that place. Let me share the story, right? Because it was instrumental in how my life unfolded. Dare I say, it was completely life changing. So I, I go into the office one morning and I get my job sheet as to where I was going to go. And we used to go out and clean carpets, but it was not so much domestic cleaning. This company worked for insurance companies. So if someone put an insurance claim in, the insurance company would appoint this company I was working for to go out and see if they could, let's say, remove the red wine stain from the carpet. And if they couldn't get the stain out, then the insurance company would then think, okay, well, we have to replace the carpet. But it was an opportunity to try and save money on behalf of the insurance company. So there were commercial contracts with this company. So I got this address. I thought, oh, that's the real posh end of town, and it's typically the type of houses that footballers live in, right? So I
Hmm.
remember I drove up my little yellow van, and I came to this intercom system. I remember looking at the house and thinking, oh my goodness, this is incredible. So I pressed the intercom, and a Scottish guy answered. It was a guy called Alistair Mackenzie. And I introduced myself. He pressed the buzzer. He opened the big electric gates, and I drove up my little yellow van up the gravel drive around the fountain, and I parked my van next to his red Ferrari.
Mm.
And I remember like knocking on the door. And he came to the door. He's really friendly chap, and I went to trying to get the stain out the carpet. And I'm quite a personable chap. I like a bit chit chat, so I'm chatting away to him. And then I asked a really, really basic, fundamental question, and I said to him, "Mr. Mackenzie, how can I become rich like you?" And I'll never forget his words. And he turned and looked at me and he went, "Young Pete, if you want what others have got, you've got to do what others won't. And if you want more, you've got to become more." And I remember thinking, what? I didn't fully understand, what it was that he was, and I kind of asked him to expand on it a little bit. And in the shell of a nut, it was really about you have to exceed expectation. You have to go the extra yard. You have to provide the value without promise of compensation. And in doing so, you just get noticed. And and that day I decided that I was going to put his advice to the test working in the company where I was. So I had decided in my mind that I was going to become the most competent, capable, committed carpet cleaner, lowest paid because the wages were rubbish, that they'd ever employed. So I left there, And for about 6 months, I was doing things like turning up early. And I used to make sure that when I turned up early, it was before the boss came in, so that when he came in, he saw that I was in first. And I was always either cleaning the equipment or I was cleaning my van. And then things like if anyone wanted overtime to be worked, I was like, always first, I'll do it. And I used to do the overtime. And when I was in the person's home, I would exceed expectation. I would even give them a little bit of like special shampoo for stain cleaning. And I would say, this is really expensive. I'm going to give you this. And if you've got any, this is how you use it. And whilst I'm here, is there anything else that you want done? And yeah, I used to have, dare I say, the clients absolutely eating out of my hand. And then I used to say to them when I knew that I like had made a really good impression and done a fantastic job, I used to say, can I just ask, are you happy with my cleaning? Are you happy with everything? Is there anything you'd like me to do while I'm still here? I've got about 10 or 15 minutes spare. And I used to say to them, I wonder if you could do me a favor. I said, I'm trying to get promoted at work. And I wonder if you could write in a letter to my boss and just say that this operative was amazing. I said, now, whatever you do, don't tell him that I've asked you to do that. Otherwise, I'll get sacked. And there was no opportunity to get promoted.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And I tell you what I also used to do. I used to give them an envelope with a stamp on. And I tell you why I did that. Because there is always something we can do to influence a more favorable outcome. Because I anticipated they wouldn't have a stamp, they wouldn't have an envelope. So I used to put different color stamps on different envelopes. And you know what? I did this for about 6 months. And I was starting to wonder if anybody was paying attention.
Mm.
So sometimes we do things and we don't always get the reward that we want, right?
Right.
And then one Monday morning, my boss shouted me into the office. And he kind of popped his head out the office, and all of my workmates were like, ooh, last one in, first one out.
Oh, they thought you were getting fired.
Yeah, yeah, they thought I was getting sacked. And I went into the office that day and I sat down, and my boss said to me, he was a guy called Frank Small, and he said, do you know what, Pete? He said, I have seen the most remarkable change in you over the last 6 months. He said, you are a model operative. And he said, you won't believe this. And he went into the drawer and he opened his drawer and he pulled out a wad of envelopes and he slammed them on the desk and he said, I've even had letters of commendation about you. And I'm thinking, I love it when a plan comes together. But I had to act shocked. And I was like, never in the world. And that day, I stepped into management. It was my very first management role. I was 17 years old. My wage doubled. And I walked out that office 6 foot tall. And all of the guys who were in there, the guys who were always moaning and groaning and miserable, and it's a dead end job. As I walked out, they said, what happened? What happened? And I went, meet your new boss.
Oh my goodness. At 17 years of age.
And you know what? They said to me, they were so angry. They were like, how come they've given that to you? We joined here long before you did. And I was thinking to myself, well, if you think about it, I'm still working at the same dead end place, still getting the same old rubbish wages, still kicking around with the people who are whinging and whining and negative all the time. So what had really changed? And the
Mm.
answer was me.
Yeah.
I had changed. And do you know what, Petra? That story is as true as God's green earth. And that was a picture of me aged 17
Move over
in my
slightly.
first. Can you
Move,
see that?
move a little over. Oh my
Which
goodness,
way?
there you
Yeah,
are. It's the other
there it
way.
is.
Yeah, right there, right there. Oh my goodness. Ah!
Aged aged 17 and hair with my briefcase that I got from the second-hand store. and a second-hand jacket. And that was the start of the most incredible adventure.
So you probably know Jim Rohn.
Of course,
Of course, everyone knows Jim Rohn, and he had a similar story, you know. He had a
I know.
similar story. So, oh my God, that's so inspiring. You know, a lot of young people really need to hear this. And I'm glad you wrote a book about it. So tell me about the book.
Well, the book came much later on the back of. So when this happened to me, this experience I was just sharing with you, and I got promoted, I remained in that company for about another 6 months. But now I'm in management, and
Mhm,
now I'm communicating with all of the insurance brokers and the
mhm,
loss adjusters, and I'm building my relationship capital with all of these people. And then because of what I had learned, the contacts I had made, the money that I had saved, I decided that I was going to set up my own business doing exactly the same. And
mhm,
I had I'd made a real pal of one of these insurance adjusters. And we were able to have a confidential conversation. Maybe it was a little bit risky, but I took the chance anyway. And I said, if I was to set up my own business, would you give me business? And
mhm.
this adjuster said, yeah, I would. I would give you the business because you are the face, you are the guy that we relate to. And we love the way that you've been operating with us. And I asked them to confirm that in writing. I
Mhm.
got that in writing, and I then took that to the bank, and I turned around and gave it to the bank and said, look, I've got an opportunity here. This is a hugely credible contact. Um, Long story short, I was able to get a relatively small overdraft, and I set up my business. That was aged 18. And talk about right place, right time, right action. It was a whirlwind. And ultimately, it resulted in, by the age of 21, that I actually became a self-made millionaire.
That's so incredible. Such a success story. Wow.
But the book came after that, and the 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 book was really all about and I named the book One Life, One Shot because we only get one time around this track called life to the best of my knowledge. And it's too precious and it's too short,
Hmm.
to settle for less. And I kind of went from someone who, completely flunked at school, no one would give me a chance, to starting off as a drain cleaner, having a chance meeting with a millionaire who gave me some advice that I'd never kind of heard before, putting it to the test, getting that promotion, and then using what had happened as leverage to then be able to start my own business. And my dad was always my champion, and he actually believed in me when no one else did, Petra. In fact, my dad used to say to me, son, you've got magic inside of you.
Oh,
Now, that was maybe that's just a father's love for his son, right? But the point being is, you got to be careful who you listen to because I actually believed that my dad was right when he said, you've got magic inside of you, son.
mhm.
And I believe in you. And because of what had transpired, I actually got to buy them their first ever private house because we grew up really poor. I mean, I was the kid on the block who didn't get a bike for birthday or Christmas because my parents couldn't afford it. So if I wanted to be able to have the things that other people had, I had to go to work as a young guy at 13, and I was cutting people's privets and mowing their grass, and cleaning the snow away, and really providing washing cars and being a milk guy and being a paper boy. And so I used to I understood the importance of, you know, working for what you want, and not being just given it, right? And so because we grew up so poor, and then I'd gone on to achieve this success, And at the time, my mum was still working, and they lived in rented accommodation. My dad had been diagnosed with cancer at age 50.
Oh.
And I wanted my mum to be with my dad and not have to work. But my mum couldn't give up work because they didn't have a home. It was a home that was attached to a job. And I just thought, okay, here's my opportunity. So I actually bought them this beautiful house, and they didn't know anything about it. And I said to my mum and dad one day, I've got something I want to show you. I said, come and get in the car. My mum's like, oh, tell me where we go now, Peter. She used to call me Peter. Tell me where we going. I said, it's a surprise. And she said, just tell me I'm busy. I said, stop that. You're coming with me. And we pulled into this lovely little cul-de-sac, with about 10 houses in. I said, come on, get out the car. She was huffing and puffing and whatnot. And we pulled up outside the house, and I literally took out the keys out my pocket, and I said, you see that lovely little house there with the shed and the beautiful flowers and the peak and the dormer? Yeah, yeah, yeah. I said, I bought it for you.
Oh.
And it was just the most amazing moment when you realize that he, if you if you're going to achieve success, I think it means nothing if you don't have someone to share it with, And for me, it was for their unconditional love. My mum cuddled me and cried, and my dad just gave me a big hug and told me how proud he was of us. So that was like a magic moment. So when my dad was on his deathbed, um, he was my hero. I knew what he went through with cancer as well, and how he'd always been there for me. And I was with him and holding his hand. And he broke his heart talking about regrets.
Oh.
And he really opened up to me in a way that I'd never ever heard my dad talk before. And it was heartbreaking. So I'm very aligned with understanding about not living with regrets because of that conversation. But I was so broken that I was going to lose my hero. And I don't know where it came from, Petra. I have no idea. I'd never ever thought about writing a book before. Just hadn't even crossed my mind. And I think I said to my dad, I'm going to write a book. I'm going to dedicate it to you. And I want everybody to know that you are my dad and you're my hero. Um, and I want the world to know how important you were to me. And I think I said that because I was just trying to immortalize him. And I just want to, if I may, really quickly, because it's a short
Yeah.
dedication, but I think it's powerful.
We have all the time in the world.
Thank you, Petra. It says here, this book is dedicated to my dad, my hero, Pete Rea Sr., who passed away in August 2008. I miss you every day. You believed in me when no one else did. You were always by my side. I kept my promise, Dad. I wrote the book and I dedicated it to you. May everyone who reads this book know just how much I love you and miss you, and how proud I am to say that you're my dad and my hero. I remember how we used to laugh and laugh until we couldn't laugh anymore. Our sides would ache, tears would roll down our cheeks. We could hardly breathe. We had some magic, magic moments and made happy memories that I'll cherish forever. You and Mom will live in our hearts forever until we meet again. Your loving son, beautiful daughter-in-law Claire, and doting grandsons Chris, Alex, Lewis, Brad, and Max.
Oh,
I know. And I
that
wrote the.
joked up. So, one life. So this is your life story. The book's about your life story, Pete.
It is up until 2012.
Oh, it's time for another book.
I know it is.
Company.
It is. The book is really, it's like how to get more out of life, more money, success, and happiness. And But here's the thing, right, Petra, is that the world is full of how-tos now. It's everywhere. But I wanted to write a book that wasn't just this is what you need to do. I wanted to give people the inspiration to act on the information.
Mm-hmm.
So I wrote it in a conversational way, in a way that people can relate to. And yeah, as much as a surprise to me, it went on to become a bestseller.
You know,
So,
books are the best business cards in the world.
yeah, man.
Yeah.
And the thing is, neither my mom or my dad ever got to see the book. Then I never got to place it in their hand because the both passed beforehand. And it's interesting because I said to my dad I was going to write it. He died in 2008.
Hmm.
Okay. And my mom died in 2010.
Hmm.
And I proclaimed at my dad's eulogy that I was going to write the book as a dedication to him. And then my mom died 2 years later, and I still hadn't wrote the book.
Hmm.
And I think that is also a powerful message that it's easy to say you're going to do something. It's entirely different to actually make the commitment and do it. So I decided that I don't set goals anymore. I make promises.
Ah, that's a good one. Making
Yeah.
promises rather than
Make a
setting goals.
promise. I make a promise.
Hmm.
And that's basically, where it started. But life had other plans for me. It must have thought that I'd had things too easy, and I needed to learn more because when I was 35, that's when the markets changed, and I made some bad decisions,
Hmm.
and I ended up losing everything, Petra. I mean, I say everything. I use that term loosely, but I lost the wealth, and I went bankrupt, and I ended up being given like rented accommodation, and I was in this really dark place, and I had a nervous breakdown, and
Hmm.
suffered from depression, and it was a really, really dark period in my life.
You know, they call that, I was in India for a long time and
Yeah.
studied the Guru and all that. And they call that the dark night of the soul. But it is necessary for us to go through this because if you don't go through the dark night of the soul, how are you going to know what is real?
I,
We have,
I agree. I
like my
agree.
Israeli friend always says, is sometimes onion, sometimes honey. So
Well, yeah, and something else, which is aligned with what you just said there is, sometimes we win and sometimes we learn. And for a long while, I was really in on myself, and I felt like a victim.
mm,
And the thoughts that I would keep in the self-worth and the self-belief had completely crashed. And here's something that was really difficult, Peter, right? You know how I'd bought the house for my mum and dad?
yeah.
Well, I still had it in my name, and they took the house as well.
Oh my God.
And what had been the
Oh.
most incredible moment of my life to be able to give them the house, it would become the worst nightmare when they seized the house.
I can only
One night.
imagine. I can only imagine what that must have. What year was that when the market was that 2008 when the market crashed?
Do you know, I forget.
Erica, it was 2008.
It all blurs into one. But
Yeah.
um, but yeah, I was 35. I'm now 62. I'll maybe just let you do the maths. Uh, remember, I wasn't very good at school. So yeah, it was a very, very difficult time, and I had a hard time dealing with it because my dad was really ill with the cancer, because that he's having treatment, and they were giving him a few years, but um, so I felt so wholly responsible because the stress. One of the things we understand is that stress is a killer, it weakens the immune system, And here's me dad, needing to not be stressed, and I've leveraged all this stress on onto them, and
Mm.
my mum said something, and it was only because she was hurt, and she said, I knew I shouldn't have, I knew something would go wrong. I knew, and I just, and I had nothing to say, and for 2 years, this darkness, this darkness was there, and I was an absolute shadow of my former self, Petra, a complete shadow. And things had got that bad that even on the rented house that I was now living in, I'd fallen behind on my rent. I was served a repossession order on the property. And I remember that year, it was Christmas time, and I couldn't even afford to buy my children any Christmas presents.
Oh.
And so my self-worth was so low at that point that I actually bought all that year. My boys all got second-hand presents. I went to car boot sales. I think you might call them yard sales in America. And I was buying them from there and cleaning them up, and putting stickers over the scratches and things like that, and wrapping them up without boxes and whatnot. And I remember thinking that it just doesn't get much worse than this. Like, and 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 you just can't see your way out of the darkness when you feel like this. But
Mhm.
my advice to other people would be that when we can't find the way forward, it's to have an attitude of gratitude. And I really focused on. I started thinking about all of the good things that I had in my life. I'd met Claire, a beautiful wife, and we'd had a son together at that point, and she was my soulmate. And I thought, well, I've still got my family, I've still got my health, and I started really appreciating that more, and focusing on that. Ultimately, the important things aren't things, the people. And it's interesting, but I was watching one night. Claire had gone down to see her mum's, and this is about 2 years into the darkness, right? Claire had gone down to her mum's, who lived down the street. Um, and I was, believe it or not, I was watching Rocky 2. Rocky 2, of all films. This is the one where Sylvester Stallone is in the fighting Apollo Creed. He gets a shot at the title to give the underdog a shot at the title. And I must have watched this film about 100 times. And I was sitting watching it, and it was one particular scene. And Rocky and Apollo, they both punch each other at exactly the same time. And there's no way that Rocky can win unless he gets a knockout, because he's way behind on points. And they both punch each other at the same time, and they both fall down. And it's in the dying seconds of the last round. Okay. And whoever gets up wins. And I don't know what it was. I jumped out of my seat, and I'm shouting at the screen. I've got tears rolling down my cheek, and I'm shouting, "Get up, Rocky! Get up! Get up! Get up!" And I thought to myself, "What am I doing?" I know he gets up. I've watched it so many times. In that moment, something was stirring inside of me, and it was like this metaphor on life. It's like you get knocked down, you get back up. You get knocked down, you get back up, and it's just something stirred. And it was like I was talking about myself. I was really saying, Pete, get up, fight. This is not over. You've done it before. You can do it again. And that's where I was at, Petra. And it's funny how sometimes when you make a decision and you get a clarity, and you start looking up at the horizon instead of looking down at the road, all of a sudden it's like the universe. Okay, he's learned his lesson. It's time now to put the right things in front of him, because he's because I sometimes think when we put the income before the become, we tap out.
Yeah,
And
that's a good one. I like that saying.
yeah,
The
it
income.
is. It's about the becoming, right?
Oh, it was
It,
the same, just what you're sharing is so powerful because, a lot of times people don't get back up or they feel
I
that,
know.
oh, why should I get up? Or, no, like I did a podcast before, and it was a lot of work and I thought, oh, maybe somebody else can do it. And then I said, no, I have to do it because the universe is telling me I have to do it. I have
Yeah,
65 years of experience under my belt, and I've been to India and I've studied with the masters and I've done all these things, and it's time for me to get back out. But it's a commitment, and also there's gratitude involved.
yeah,
Gratitude for
man.
the fact that we even have all the tools available now. Like, I don't know, Joe Vitale from The Secret. I don't know if you ever heard him. He lifted his
Of course, yeah.
remember that story? Oh my God, that is just one of my favorite. And I was that close, I was suffering and I was so poor and I was away from home. I didn't have a family in America. I was all on my own. Everybody around me died that I cared about. It was really tough. And same thing.
I
Yeah.
think we,
So,
I think, what I have found is that I think a lot of people are stuck today, not because they're lazy or not because they're incapable, but somewhere along the way along that line, along throughout the journey, that they've lost belief in themselves. Life has knocked them down, and the fear, the doubt, second guessing everything, um, and before we know, we start settling for a life that is so much smaller than we ever imagined. And one of the things that I'm really passionate about is helping people to believe in themselves and to believe in better.
mhm.
And I think the believing in better kind of comes first, and that might be debatable, but hear me out on this. You see, it's it's our vision for the future that provides us with the power in the present.
Mhm.
Because if you have this vision of what you would love to be able to achieve and you attach a real significance to that. You see, when I married Claire, I remember I remember saying at the altar, right, for better or for worse, for richer or for poorer. And I chose better and richer. So I realized that when I was down, that I reconnected with the promise that I had made. And and I realized that by me remaining how I was and where I was, that I was putting my family through a lot of hardship and a lot of pain. And I realized that I just needed to get up and that I don't have to have it all figured out, and that all I need to do is take the first step, the right next step, and then take the next right step after that. And then the further you go, the further you see. And that you realize that life isn't about making a huge decision and your life suddenly changes. It's about the small daily decisions that you make to show up that no one else sees in the moment. And for me, I used to anchor something more important to that daily decision than myself.
Exactly.
So if I was going to think about, I'm going to let myself off the hook, then I used to attach more significance to that. And I would attach that being my children or Claire, in that I'm letting myself down, I'm letting them down, and that made me stay much more resolute. And I absolutely believe in that it's not too late to change direction,
Hmm.
and it's never too late to reinvent yourself. And it's never too late to take a chance on yourself, because
Mhm.
I believe that when we make a decision, and I believe that's entirely different to making a choice. I think a choice is like choose one. I think a decision is to cut off from all other, like all in. And it's interesting. You'll know Tony Robbins. And I remember going to the firewalk. You can see the certificate that we got for doing
Yeah.
the firewalk there. But when we were in there, he played a game of Simple Simon. Simple Simon, put your hand on your head. Simple Simon saying, put your hand on your shoulder, and obviously trying to catch people out, right? So he started this. It was 10,000 people in this room, right? 10,000 people, and so he started. And I was out really quickly. I was useless, right? and then at the end, the person who won, he said, "Come up on the stage, come up on the stage," and he was like, "Look, I need you to be completely honest with me here, right?" And he said, "Because I want to make an important point and I need your honesty." And this is what he said to the audience. He says, "I want you to put your hand up, if when I said we are going to do Simple Simon, you absolutely unequivocally decided that you were going to win. Put your hand up if you took it to that level." Do you know how many people put their hand up?
How many?
10.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the point was, there wasn't a 10,000 chance in winning. There was actually only a 1 in 10. So the odds were massively in your favor. And I think that's the problem that we have, is we don't decide. My attitude is, we've got to approach it with we're going to burn the boats, we're taking the island. And kind of approach it, with that level of tenacity and determination. Because if it was easy, everybody would be living their best life, right?
That is where it's interesting. I mean, you talk to 100 people, and you know this from network marketing, and you speak to that's what Jim Rohn always used to say. You talk to 100 people, maybe one person will jump on board and want this as badly as you want it, or understands what the oils are.
But you know what, Petra?
Yeah.
It's like I also believe that what got us here won't necessarily get us there. Let me explain. And this is to do with marketing and ratios, or some real value in terms of like cutting edge, right? For your audience. You probably remember Blockbuster because we're over 18, right?
Oh, I would remember for sure.
This was a global company, right? A
Yeah.
global company that turned over 6 billion.
Mm.
And they used to rent out videos, right? I mean, the youngins listening to this would be like, "What's a video?" Right?
What's a video? What's a cassette?
Exactly. So, and we used to hire the video and watch the movies, right? It was great. We used to even get popcorn at the counter. But Blockbuster went bankrupt because of Netflix. Now, what's interesting here is that, how could that happen? And the answer was that they failed to pivot. They failed to listen and to adapt and make adjustments to market changes in the way that people wanted to do the thing. So, for example, and this is the really powerful thing about it, Blockbuster went bankrupt unnecessarily because, people didn't stop wanting to watch movies. They just wanted to change the way they did that, okay, which was they wanted to stream the movie instead of rent the movie. So Blockbuster serves really as a great reminder that what got us here is not what's necessarily going to get us there. In coming back to ratios, what I have found is that there's always things we can do to influence a more favorable outcome. So the envelope and the stamp that I used to give when I was an employee to get them to write in, because today I believe that we really need to connect with the right audience. And in the past, I think, especially in network marketing, we've been too broad. Where I think now we really need to know who specifically we serve and what is their problem. And how do we specifically help them? And I think that enables us to be able to dial it in. enables us to really pick a lane and to be able to create relatable content that is much more likely to connect, to land, to resonate with the right people. So less curiosity seekers and more intentional problem seeking people. Okay, well, solution seeking. Sorry, and I just think that is so powerful. So, for example, when I first found essential oils, for me, I started as a customer because I had some health
You
issues.
were ill, right? You had some.
Yeah, I had a number of health challenges, and I used to get like frequent headaches. I had really low energy levels where I felt like I couldn't even lift my arms. Felt like chronic fatigue. I had digestive issues. I had joint pain. I was an insomniac. Now, here's what my issue was with that. My mum said to me, your dad was fit as a lop until he hit the age of 50, and then everything started falling apart.
Mhm.
And again, be careful who you listen to. That burned into my subconscious. And as I'm starting to approach the age of 50, now we don't know what we don't know, right? And I didn't understand about living more intentionally and living cleanly and about wellness, really. I wasn't from that world. So clearly, I was neglecting my own personal self care, but
Mm.
couldn't join the dots with what was then starting to happen as my body was moving out of like homeostasis and things like that, right? So, it was like completely out of balance and I was having all sorts of symptoms result. So I didn't know this at the time. And when I was introduced to essential oils, someone said to me when we got on chatting, and I was chatting about the English weather, and then we got on about health. Those are the two things that the British talk about: the weather and health.
Mm.
And this lady said to me, she said, "Well, have you ever tried essential oils?" And I went, like I said earlier, what smelly, fluffy things that people who knit woolly
Ah,
jumpers, wear flip flops, and hug trees, run through the forest barefoot with daisy chains around their head. So, again, my apologies. I don't mean to offend anybody, but that was who I was,
no. Mhm.
before I become more, right? And she said, "Oh, yeah, yeah. These oils, they're not just like other oils. These are like 100% pure and it's like natural medicine." Now, all of a sudden, that resonated. Natural medicine,
Mhm.
nature's very own pharmacy. And she taught me about some of these oils and how they had helped other people. So I actually came onto a presentation, right? She said, "Well, why don't you just come on and find out? You've got nothing to lose, have you?" I said, "No, okay, I'll come on." So I came on the presentation. And even though there was like, I was thinking, oh, I need that oil to help me with the headaches. Oh, I need that oil to help me with the digestive issues. I need that oil to help me with the sleep. Believe it or not, that's not what resonated with me. What resonated with me was when they said that only 25% of our outcome when it comes to health is determined by genetics. 75% is our lifestyle behaviors
Mhm.
ish.
It
I
shook
remember
you.
thinking,
It shook you probably at that
it
moment.
did.
This
It,
is
it
like
made me
like
realize
the genetics that Bruce Lipton talks about.
exactly
You're not determined on your genetic code entirely.
that
Mm.
was my takeaway, Petra. And I remember thinking, oh my goodness, I've got more control than I actually thought that I had. So when they talked about in this how you can help to support and boost the immune system, which is your front line of defense, so it helps to keep you protected, and
Mhm.
that we're under greater risk from things happening within than we are from without, and how important it was to boost the immune system on a regular basis because it's under attack every day, so we need to support it every day. And then this oil can help to optimize your cellular wellness and your health is won and lost in the cells. And did you know your cells on average regenerate every 6 weeks? And that means healthy cells today doesn't mean healthy cells tomorrow. So you've got to be proactive. And I was thinking, I didn't know that. And then this is the oil that you use to optimize your gastrointestinal health. And here's the reason why. Did you know most diseases start in the gut? And I was like, no, I didn't know that. And I felt empowered.
I bet.
And I
Mm.
just thought, wow. And I thought, if these do what they say they're going to do, I'm in. So I started as a customer. I started as a customer in 2018 because I had been with the other company before that, become the top earner. The company went into administration 2 years out, thinking, what am I going to do? Didn't know if I wanted to step back into network marketing,
So
but
your
then
whole
realized,
network marketing team was taken away. Was that
yeah,
what
yeah, it was
happened?
gone. And
Was
when I
gone
started,
overnight? Oh my goodness.
yeah, and when I started again, it was 2 years later. So the team I had moved on. So
Yeah.
when I actually started again,
Oh,
I only started as a customer with the product because I was never going to build another business in
yeah.
network marketing because of the experience. I was grieving, and it was a decision that I made in the moment. But so I actually got involved with essential oils as a customer
Hmm.
because of the that moment of inspiration about preventative healthcare, um, and the fact that I had some challenges in the moment that I needed solutions for.
Hmm.
And I had the most wonderful positive experiences from these oils. And and I got to tell you, honestly, Peter, I'm 62 years young. I've got incredible energy. I have nothing, touch wood, nothing wrong with me. And and I feel better today than I did 15 years ago. And I
Well,
know that hasn't happened by chance.
I'm a little older than you, Pete.
No way.
I'm 3 years older than you.
How many?
But I gotta tell you, there was a song I just heard last night. It's in the movie The Mule with East Clintwood. Don't let the old man in. Do you know
Do you
that
know?
song?
I
That
didn't know
song.
the song, but I heard those words. And I repeated them to Claire just the other day. I said, we haven't got to let the old man and the old woman in. And she went, what are you talking about? And then I explained, and it is so true.
Don't let the
Jeez,
old man in, and I don't let the old woman in. So
no
it's the
way.
same, it's an attitude of gratitude. I
It
go
is.
down, I cold plunge in the morning, I drink my juices, I take my essential oils all day long. I surround myself with really good products that just help keep me rejuvenated and young, and
Absolutely.
ski a lot and do a lot of exercise, just exercising a lot as well.
Yeah, man.
You're
It,
good.
it, when I think of success, Petra, I know a lot of people initially think of money, right? When
Mhm.
I think of success, I imagine what that is in my brain. So I have that vision. And Claire and I are in that, and we are healthy because I think people pursue success at any cost. And I
Mhm.
have done that in the past. And I love that attitude about, in some respects, that, you'll either find me at the top of the mountain or dead on the side. I get that. I used to be that person. But
Yeah.
now I realize that health needs to be an integral part of achieving success and not separate to it. And that's why, like you, we have our daily wellness protocols. We have a big double garage, and we had part of that converted during COVID, and we made it into a gym so the family could all go to the gym because it's good for the mental well-being,
Mhm.
okay, as well as the physical. And I go into the gym. It's very easy. I'll go in there, 4 times a week, but that's also where I commit to my personal development. So when I go in there, I don't just put music on. I'm listening to podcasts. I'm following gurus. I'm educating myself. So whilst I'm working on, the physical aspect, I'm also working on the mental aspect. So yeah, we understand the importance of yeah, not taking things for granted.
Well,
Uh,
I love it
routines.
that I am on your, maybe I can say this on this podcast, that I am on your team in doTERRA. So I am very grateful to you for building this extraordinary platform on ChatGPT. I have got to tell you, Pete, that is a jewel because
It is.
all the answers are there and that you put the time in to build this. So anything that you ever want to know about essential oils is basically on there. Or
It
about
is, and also it's been input with health information.
Yeah.
So not only has it got information about the product, about the health, and what I love about it as well is that it's it it's very intuitive, you know. Like if you put in there, you know, I'm having trouble sleeping, what can I use? It doesn't just go, well, here you go. It says, well, can you tell me a little bit about your trouble sleeping? You know, is it this? Is it that? To help me to understand more so that I can give a greater context,
Mm.
and then provide you with a little bit more dialed in, you know, information. So
So
it,
is this platform, Pete, only for your team members?
yeah, it's something that I've created to be able to add value and support them in the journey. And you know, coming back to the starting as a customer,
Mm.
and then falling in love with these products and realizing that, oh my goodness, you know, I need to share this gift with others.
Yeah.
Um, and for me, this comes back to a tip I started talking about, but then I digressed when I said today, you know, what got us here is not what's going to get us there. When I first stepped into essential oils, I was really broad with it, you know, like, hey, do you want to find out about essential oils? And we get a lot of curiosity seekers, but we went through the numbers, like you were saying with Jim Rohn, right?
Mhm.
But now, for example, if I'm going to promote essential oils, I would dial that right in. So for me, and there's a message here for all of your audience, right, to be able to dial in. And I'll give you an example of that. So because I'm 62, and so I'm getting older, you know, and because I'm very aligned with worrying about the road ahead, because best intentions in the world, the road ahead is potentially more perilous than the road we've traveled, right? Because we're getting older and there's an epidemic of chronic disease and serious illness. I mean, 1 in 2 people now get cancer, right? And, you know, we've got diabetes that's doubled in the last decade. And then you've got the likes of heart disease and dementia, which is now the #1 killer. So the road ahead is potentially more perilous for us all, not just for people who are getting older, right? For everyone.
Mhm.
Um, so getting older and health is on my radar, and I'm very aware of risks. So when I dial in, when I'm looking to grow my business, I'm more dialed into, I'm looking for people. I help people over 50 to
Mm.
be able to reduce the risks of chronic disease and serious illness by
Mm.
establishing daily wellness protocols with
Mm.
natural products
Mhm.
so they can live better for longer.
Yeah.
So the who, people who are over 50. The what, people who are thinking the same as me, want to reduce the risks of illness because they know the road ahead is more perilous. You know,
Right.
and the how is through the implementation of daily wellness protocols, you know, through using essential oils. So I'm really dialed in. Now, if you think about that, what that means is the message lands more. So if I'm turning up every day, talking about something that I'm passionate about,
Yeah.
it don't feel like work, right? It's an extension of myself.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, the vibe attracts the tribe. People who feel the same way as me are going to connect. So when I invite them to take a look at something, guess what? It's going to resonate. It's congruent. And therefore, the conversions are better.
Because people become passionate, they learn and they take it in, and you know, I'm passionate about the oils, and I'm passionate about health and well-being and wellness. And you know, I teach a lot of Reiki classes and retreats, and we always use essential oils with everything we do. This Sunday we have a meditation class where I go around and give everybody a little bit of lavender oil or something that is handy next to me, you know, which my bottles are all lined up here next to me usually. And it really changes the mood in the room. And so people
It
can do
does.
a lot of things learning about this, even if it's with a different company. But there are wonderful oils that are being discovered still on the planet now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, it's just amazing. It is, and it's the beauty of nature. It's plants, isn't it? And that's where it all started, right? With plants, and then the pharmaceutical companies came along and thought, well, we can't patent nature.
What's the story with frankincense now? Where are most of these companies getting the frankincense these days? Do you
Do you
know?
know what, Petra? I am so tunnel visioned on what I do. I avoid the distractions. I feed the focus, and
Um,
I actually focus on what we do and what our oils help people with and what makes them special. I don't even concern myself with what other companies do. I believe in the company and what we do so much, and so I continue to grow my business with doTERRA. So I'm always looking to connect with people who are aligned with natural solutions, but people who want more out of life, than just the oils, because that's what I have done. I mean, I fell in love with the oils, but then I saw an opportunity to monetize it. And that really brings me around full circle because if you think about this, right, Petra, it's all about, in my view, it's all about passive income because that's working smart as opposed to working hard, swapping time for money. And if you think about this, right, when we look back on our life, um, the biggest regret is not going to be, I wished I'd spent more time at work. No way, not even close. The biggest regret for people is going to be that I wished I'd spent more quality time with my loved ones. I wished I'd traveled more. I wished I'd lived more authentically. I wished I'd had more adventures. I wished I'd looked after my health. I wished I'd done more of what lights me up and brings me joy. Those are going to be the biggest regrets that people will have in life. And I believe that foresight is more important than hindsight because hindsight usually comes too late.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
so if we know that the biggest regrets are going to be, as I've just said, then we have an opportunity to do something about it. And what I love about passive income is that it's leveraging time. And when I think of my organization now within doTERRA, there are thousands and thousands and thousands of people all around the world in 50 plus countries who love these incredible products. And as a result of that, we get to earn, a significant passive income and we don't need to work anymore. But I choose to because there's a difference between having to and wanting to.
Right.
And I love what I do.
Mhm.
It lights me up every day. It brings me joy. And I love making a difference and impacting people's lives. And I've just found this a most incredible vehicle to be able to help us to do that. But my passion isn't just that. I think I'm fueled by two things here, Petra, right? The second thing that I'm fueled by, so obviously I want to help people to live better for longer, right?
Mhm.
But the second thing that I'm fueled by is helping solopreneurs to get unstuck.
Ah.
Because I see so many enterprising people who pour their heart and soul into what they do,
Mhm.
day in, month out, year in, year out, and yet they still find themselves years later still struggling to grow, not attracting consistent clients, not earning the income that they either need or what they want. And they're just stuck in this endless cycle of not making progress. And it's not just about the money that they're not making. It runs much deeper than that. I mean, it's sucking the life out of them. It's shattering that confidence, that self-belief, and
But
it's
it is
killing
a
the
belief
dream.
system. It is truly a belief system
It
how
is.
far one can go. I see this. My son recently became an entrepreneur, and I'm seeing
Well,
already some of the signals of what he needs
yeah.
to shift. But because I'm his mother, I have to be a little bit delicate in the way I present
Yeah.
it because I don't want to tell him what to do.
You
But
can't become a prophet in your own home.
yeah, I saw it. He's self-employed now, so this is a whole new bowl of wax, a whole
Yeah.
new lifestyle for him. And he's complaining, but I said to him, I said, you know, you could complain. You could complain. And you have a reason to, that it's inconsistent and the customers don't come all the time. But when you were in a 9 to 5 job working for someone, were you able to go golfing at 2 p.m. on Wednesday afternoon that you're doing now? He's golfing every single day. How can you afford that? You have a very different lifestyle than most people because you're self-employed.
Exactly, the freedom. Sometimes people want to have the benefits of the trappings of the success before they've actually created the success. And I think there's always a good message in there, which is to set yourself, a goal that when you achieve a certain milestone, that you reward yourself with now being able to take the day off and go golf. Because, it always takes it's always more difficult than we think, and it's always going to take longer than we would like. So that means you're kind of going to be stuck a little bit in that struggle. And you've got to kind of, you've got to give yourself time to get the business to a certain point, before you start living the life.
Pete, in closing, so are you creating a new system to help entrepreneurs get unstuck, like self-employed people get unstuck? Is this like a new, totally separate system from what you've been doing, or is it going to go, move along side by side?
No,
What
I
can
think
I
I
help
think
you?
it's going to I think it's going to move along side by side. So I continue to grow my doTERRA business,
Mhm.
which I
I
see
hope
as
so
my own
because
business.
I need you out there.
So I'm going to continue to do that, and look to attract some of the right people into my life so that I can work with them personally and help them to make progress. So I'm really still passionate about that. But coming back to the solopreneurs, I've started doing like one-on-one coaching with people to be able to help them to get unstuck. You don't have to make all the mistakes yourself. I believe it's a great investment in yourself, and you can shave years off the learning curve. So I'm doing one-on-one coaching, and but I'm also working on creating a digital course right now called the Unstuck Accelerator to be able to scale, that knowledge without just it always being, one-on-one time, because of course, there's only so many hours in a day. So I'm going to kind of be, spread myself across those three things in the foreseeable future. So yeah, I've got my plan anyway, Petra. I've got to have a plan.
Well, I am happy you have a lot of plans. Like I've got 5 books to write. I started a publishing company. I'm a ghostwriter.
Wow.
Yeah, I am stuck in some places. Maybe I should start coaching with you, Pete. I know exactly where I'm stuck. I
Well,
have
do you know, it's
I
interesting,
have too
Petra.
many ideas in my head.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. You've got to distill it down. You've got to get an semblance of priorities. You know that already, though, right?
I do. I,
Oh dear.
I have to get up before in the morning every day because I got to get all the stuff done.
Oh my goodness, Petra. How do you look so amazing? Getting up at
Look,
4 o'clock in the morning.
the first 3 hours of the day or the first 4 hours of the day are precious. This is when all the ideas flow in. This is when I can write books. This is when the universe channels
That
through.
is your time. Yeah, that's your
So,
time.
yeah.
I'm better on a morning, definitely. I'm more productive. I have more clarity. There's more creativity. As it starts getting later in the day, I'm a bit like a Duracell battery, you know.
Yeah, I just kind of what do they call it? I kind of click out a little in the afternoon. I needed my nap, but I never take a nap. I know I should have a nap, but I don't take the nap. And by evening,
Uh,
I'm a zombie. So
Peter, the biggest pressure out there is the one that we put on ourselves,
yeah.
isn't it? Really, you probably put yourself under pressure, But Peter, I have a gift that I want to leave for your audience, if I may.
Oh,
Okay,
thank you,
I
Pete.
I, I have a gift for them, and I would love them to get the first chapter from my book for free. And,
Oh,
and it's the most important chapter because it's written in a progressive order. So, you got to kind of put your socks on before you put your shoes on, right? So, and if they want to go and just check out the web address, and it's myfreechapter.com. So, all one word, myfreechapter.com. and they can pop the details in and I'll send it to them and they will absolutely love it. They'll understand what I mean when I say that this is no ordinary book, and that's even if I say so myself. It really is something
I'm
quite
so
unique.
happy you wrote this, and also, all your information will be in the notes on YouTube.
Oh, perfect.
Of
Thank
course,
you.
it'll be on LinkedIn, it'll be on Instagram and TikTok and so forth, and X. And anyone that is interested in essential oils will put a link to that as well. And you can always speak with Pete as well through that. So, yeah, so thank you for coming on the show
Thank you.
today. That was an amazing story. So now I know so much about you.
You do,
I,
Petra. And
I
thank you
would
so
have
much
never
for,
found this out if
I
we
know,
hadn't done this podcast. Who knows?
quest
I would have been on your team for 10 years and never known the true story.
wasn't it Alan Pease who said questions are the answers? I think he said questions are the answers, right?
Yes. Well, thank you for being here and all the good work, all the amazing contributions you make to people around the planet, and being such an extraordinary coach. And I look forward to your coaching program as well, if you want to share anything about
God
that.
bless you, Petra. It's been amazing. Thank you so much. And thank you from the bottom of my heart for inviting me on.
And thank you to my audience. Thanks for joining Spirit River Podcast, and I'll see you next time.